The last time I was in Las Vegas, it was just a couple weeks ago. We were there for the NFL draft. And Bert, I came away thinking two things. One, it's not as if Vegas needs anything else to make it crazier. Right. Okay? Vegas doesn't need the help. It's already there. Yeah. But the NFL draft brings another element to Las Vegas that was, you could feel it. It was tangible. And the other thing is, they should really do it in Vegas every year, just as they had Radio City Music Hall for many years, New York, which is great. Big stage, big city. Vegas in the draft just makes so much sense. Stop moving it around. Keep it in Vegas. That was the last time I was in Vegas. Last time
you know what? I'll
go ahead.
I'll double down on what you said. Put the Super Bowl every year in New Orleans. Super Bowl every year in New Orleans. Draft every year in Vegas, and we're good. Like, I don't think anybody would argue with that.
Some Miami, some LA.
Some Miami, maybe.
I was feeling LA. I love
New Orleans.
Even though I got
New
lost
Orleans
in
is
SoFi
a different.
Stadium.
New Orleans is a different animal, though. I mean, you could put any big event there. Like, no one will ever complain about a big event being in New Orleans. And I think the league goes, like, way too long between times they have the Super Bowl in New Orleans. Like, no one has to get in a car all week, right? Like, everything's accessible. Everything's right there. And the biggest thing, it doesn't get overwhelmed by the event. I'm sure it was – now, I wasn't in Vegas for the draft, but I'm sure Vegas for the draft felt the same way, where those cities are built for those sorts of things. They can just absorb them.
No problem.
It doesn't feel like
Exactly.
It doesn't feel like the city's overwhelmed. It doesn't feel like it's too much for anybody because they're built for those sorts of things.
So that was the last time I was there. But you were there recently. Tell me about your most recent trip to Vegas. What was going on? Let's start off talking about that, because I got so many questions for you.
I was actually there about 12 hours ago. I red-eyed back, so if it sounds like I'm trailing off at all, that might be why. But yeah, I mean, it was great. I spent a day with the Raiders out there and with Josh McDaniels, and I think what's fascinating about it, Mike, is that so many people followed him there, and you look, and if you want to know about the belief of in a coach, like the way other coaches, the other way scouts feel about a coach, look at the people who followed him, right? So Patrick Graham was the defensive coordinator with the Giants, had a lot of opportunities. He chooses to go to the Raiders. You look at the guys in the Patriots staff, Mick Lombardi, Carmen Brasillo, those guys had options. Those guys chose to go with him. The Patriots' new version of Scott Pioli, Nick Caserio, Dave Ziegler, he goes with him as general manager. And I think when you're in that building, you can kind of feel it's just different there now. And this isn't like, they have a saying there that they use, no eggshells. Like, no one is walking around on eggshells. At one point, Josh pointed out to the parking lot, and he said, I come in here at 6 a.m., there are 75 cars in that parking lot. And that's really kind of what their goal is right now. You can't win in games, you can't lose games right now. But what you can do is you can build the sort of atmosphere where people want to come in and go to work. And I think based on his experience in Denver, that's what Josh and Dave are really trying to build, is a place where people want to go to work. And I can tell you, like, the first thing they did to try to build that, like, you remember how things started with Jay Cutler, right? Like in Denver.
Oh,
so
yeah.
The first thing that Josh and Dave,
disaster.
The first thing Josh and Dave did after they got the head coach and GM jobs, they had a list of players. And they just ticked off the players, and they called every single one of them and had a conversation with every single one of them, like before the news had even broken that they were taking the jobs, because they wanted every one of those players to hear from them first and set the right sort of tone. And so, it's going to be a demanding place to work, but I think there's a real focus on, I'd almost compare it to, like, and we can swing everything back to Ohio State now if you want, like the way Ryan Day kind of lifted a dark cloud off the building.
Sounds good to me.
Coming out from under the Urban Meyer era, right? Like a cloud lifted off the building, and Ryan had kind of taken what Urban built and adapted it, where it was demanding. They called it tough love, where it was demanding, but they also created the sort of atmosphere where people wanted to come to work. I think that's what Josh is trying to do in Vegas, is take the sort of standard that New England set, but kind of make it a friendlier place to come, make it the sort of place where people want to come into work, which. I mean, you've been around Josh enough. Like, I think that's actually more who Josh is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. I think the New England thing probably gets in the way for a lot of people. You can go two ways with it. So for some coaches, and Josh McDaniels is an interesting study. That's why I'm just so fascinated by your trip out there, your visit to the Raiders facility, because Josh McDaniels represents the two paths that you can take when you're a Bill Belichick assistant. He already did one of them, the wrong path in Denver.
Yeah.
So you go, you're 32 years old, I think he was when he took that job in 2009, and you're trying to bring the Belichick knowledge with a little bit of the Belichick persona, which is a huge mistake. Don't do it. Like, there's so many coaches who do that. Some do it intentionally, some do it unintentionally, but the fact is, there's only one Bill Belichick, and he's only able to get away with his, can we call it prickly personality? Because he's won so many games. Like, if you start off 7-10 for 3 straight years, and you try to act like that with the media, see what happens. Okay, you may not even make it 3 years. So I think he did that the first time in Denver. So guys either do the Belichick thing, the Belichick imitation party, or you let your real personality come out once you're under the thumb of the Patriots apparatus, and you're allowed to talk to the media. You're allowed to show some personality and share information and just be your own guy. And I think that's what, if I'm hearing you correctly, Bert, I think that's what Josh McDaniels is going through right now.
Yeah, I mean, that was sort of my experience there. I mean, I can tell you, like, I talked to the coordinators, I talked to the assistant GM. That'll all be my story on Monday, and like, you know, like he was very much open. You know, like, and it didn't feel like New England, and I think that's a credit to Josh and maybe his own self-awareness. You know what I mean? Like an understanding what went wrong in Denver, what's gone wrong for other guys that he's worked with, and I think there are really two things to hit on off of your point. Number one, like, the way Bill coaches is sort of outdated. And I'm not saying it doesn't work, because I think it still does work, but I feel like you have to be grandfathered in, right? Like, you have to be of that era. Like, you have to be Nick Saban or Bill Belichick or an Urban Meyer when, you know, a few years ago, when you've got all these skins on the wall, and so people have to adhere to what you're doing because you've proven it. I think it's really hard I think it will be really hard to try to establish yourself as a 35, 40, 45-year-old first-time head coach doing things that way, because the players you're getting just haven't come up that way, right? The players aren't getting coached that way when they're in high school and college anymore, the way that maybe you and I were coached when we were kids, you know? So I think that's number one, and I think Josh is aware of that. And then number two, and this is like the most important thing, and I think you said, the one thing that I've found in common with all pro football players, all the guys I've covered, and some are smarter, some are dumber, some are from this background, some are from that background. Like, obviously there's a lot of diversity. There's one thing they all have in common. They all have an incredible BS meter. And I'm not sure exactly why it is, but if you're full of it, those guys can sniff that out quickly. And if they think you're full of it, they think you're trying to be something you're not, you're done with them. And I think that that's something that's really important in these cases where young coaches come out of a certain system that's very successful, that they be themselves. Because if they're not being themselves, I think pro football players have a way of figuring that out very, very quickly.
You know, the one thing, now this all makes sense, and I'm happy for Josh, you know, especially after not just Denver and how that thing fell apart pretty quickly. You know, he got off to, I think it was a 6-0 start his first year there, and then they fell apart down the stretch, won 2 of the last 8 games. In the next year, they had a junior Spygate scandal, and then see you later. He was out. Then Indianapolis. Accepting, verbally agreeing to the job and then saying, nah, not for me. I think, like, this is the right time. This is a good situation for him. I'm proud of him, but the one thing I'm looking at, and I'm a little confused by, and I wonder if he got into it, we had on that chart on the Raiders timeline, great, sign Derek Carr to the contract, trade for Devontae Adams, give him a big contract. Okay, God, we're moving, we're good. The team president situation, Mark Davis.
Yeah.
Hostile work environment. How's he navigate that situation? Because it seems like it's something that predated him.
Yeah, and I think that's the way he's got to handle it. Like the way the Raiders building set up, and this obviously can vary from team to team, but like the business side's sort of sovereign to the football side. And I think over time, like Josh and Ziegler and those guys are going to try to bring that together. But I do think, like, early on here, there were a lot of things that were happening going back to July and August that were pre-existing when they came in the building. And so, like the move to Vegas, and then, the way that things worked over the summer, and I think some of the things that happened between the former team president, Mark Bedane, and then Dan Ventrelli, who was the interim president, there was a lot of, I would say, loyalties on both sides there. And the way that last summer went led to that exodus. And then, I think there were some loyalists to the old team president still in the building, and that's what sort of led to maybe Ventrelli winding up on the outside looking in. Obviously, there's a lot to work through there. And I don't think the football people are that connected to it right now. I think eventually, you want to have a harmonious building, and, I would think that Josh and Dave would want to be at least tangentially a part of helping to build that back up. And they've got ways to go on that side of the building, no question. But I don't think the football people have been hit much by it quite yet.
You know what? If I had seen you before you made that trip to Vegas and looking at those pictures there of Mark Davis, you can bring those pictures back up of Mark Davis, because those are interesting. If I had seen you before you went out there, I would have said, Bert, I'll give you $250 if you just go up to Mark and say, hey, where do you get your haircut? I really like it. I really like what you're doing here. I really.
Does that look good on me?
You
think that look?
It's fashion
be like
forward.
A little bit of like yeah. Like he's got it like it's a little like a kind of like staggered there, so it's not a straight line, right?
It's staggered.
It's a little staggered up there. Yeah.
It's a stagger.
They got the scissors that are like that have like the little indents in them, right? Like so your hair isn't all the same size. So like they're like, I think they maybe use those scissors in the front there, or maybe he did it himself.
So
what do you think?
To him.
You think he has
you know what,
somebody
man? Yeah, I say you make me miss having hair. Like I've been okay with being bald, but seeing what you've done with your style here, I kind of miss having that option, Mark. Why don't you let me know?
Just kind of getting to go whichever way you want to go that day. Yeah, I can see what you're saying.
I guess.
I mean,
but
I don't know. What do you think that's homemade, or do you think that he actually has that professionally done?
No, I think somebody does it. And I could be wrong.
There's like a little mullet thing. There's a little mullet thing going on there, right?
Yeah. I think it's somebody who's afraid of him. I hope this is not true. I think it's somebody afraid of him. They get
but
it
if that
done,
person's afraid of him, then that must be exactly what he asked for, right?
Right, that's what I'm saying. That's my point. That they give him what he's asking for, but they're afraid to say to him, you know what, let's try something different. Hey, you know what? Right. Hey, Mark, just sit back. I'm going to try a little something different. See what you think of it. Because, you might like it. But in all seriousness, let me ask you this. I'll tell you, something else is different about the Raiders. And you tell me just your sense of, I know it's May, it's early, we can't really say who's going to be what when September comes around. Right. But I just think about the AFC. We spent so much time, Bert, talking about the AFC West. All right, the Raiders, making their aggressive moves. The Chiefs were aggressive, taking some chances. Tyreek Hill out of there. The Broncos, we'll talk with Ryan Harris later. They were probably the most aggressive team going after Russell Wilson and that big deal. And then the Chargers. So everybody... I hear and everybody I read, they all say the same thing. Oh, the AFC West, all these great teams. Everybody can't be great, though, can they? I mean,
and
you can't have four of those teams are not going to be 11-6.
Well, right, and if you think of like Buffalo and Cincinnati, if their road is a little easier to get to the playoffs than what you're facing out of the AFC West, because remember, the West divisions also play each other. So it's not just those teams playing each other. They're playing against the Rams and the Niners and the Seahawks and the Cardinals. And so, like, you look at it and, like, they can't all be great. And, like, is it possible that they beat each other up to the point where maybe the division champion only has 11 or 12 wins? Well, that could have an effect on where the AFC title game is, right? Like, so if you're Buffalo or Cincinnati looking at this, there's certainly a possibility there that the fact that the AFC West has become so competitive means maybe the AFC title games at Paul Brown Stadium, maybe the AFC title games in Orchard Park. And so I think it's a great point, Mike, in that these teams, all seem to be in this like similar aggressive posture where, the Chiefs obviously have been in the Super Bowl 2 times in the last 3 years, AFC Championship game 4 years in a row. The Broncos felt like their roster was ready for a franchise quarterback, and they went and got that guy. The Chargers are in their window with a young quarterback on a rookie contract in Justin Herbert, and then you got the Raiders, who I think feel like they can build on what they had last year, which was a playoff team despite everything else that happened there. And yeah, I think you look at it like well-coached teams, good quarterbacks in that division, they could beat each other up to the point where maybe all those teams are having to go on the road, when they get to the divisional playoff or into the AFC title round.
Bert, I know you got so much stuff in your notebook, and we're going to get to a lot of it today. We're also, Albert Breer, going to take you back to the beginning stages of your career. Before you were a national NFL reporter, you probably had to cover high schools like we all did.
Yep.
You had to cover soccer and basketball and
I missed some
baseball.
stuff about that. That was actually pretty fun.
So,
looking back, I don't know if the paycheck was very fun, but
no, it wasn't. It wasn't. But the kids were nice. The kids are. You asked them for an interview. I never had a high school athlete say to me, "No comment."
They were excited to talk to you. Yeah.
Never got shut down by a high school athlete. But we're going to allow you to exercise that muscle today, your general sports muscle, your football expertise, and also we'll talk some NBA playoffs too with Vinny Goodwill in about 20 minutes. But when we come back, I do want to ask you about something that I know it confuses you because I'm reading your feed. It confuses you, and I'm floored by it. And maybe we can talk about it and figure it out together when we come back on Brother from Another with Albert Breer making his debut. Hey, thanks for watching Brother from Another on YouTube. Make sure you hit subscribe before you leave, and be sure to watch us 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Peacock. Appreciate you.